Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at a third submission by Thomas of his horse Evento. In our past couple of videos with this horse, we've seen him go from being quite hollow in the first one and barely moving behind at all to what we're going to now see today, which is really looking good. The horse is developing beautifully over his top line, and as always, Thomas is doing a great job riding him. So just starting off here in the walk, we already see a pretty nice swinging walk, active over his back. Such a bigger step, and look how easily the horse is coming forward from Thomas's leg now. I just saw Thomas straighten up there a little bit. I was just about to say the same thing. He just needed to straighten up just a little bit. And while we don't want to get in the habit of having our heads down all the time, so it's a good idea to get in the habit even when they're stretching. We don't want to get in the habit of having our face looking down all the time. So try to keep your shoulders up on top of your heads and keep your shoulders lift a little bit and flattened into your back there. And try to glance down more than turn your whole head down to get a chance. So we don't want to end up looking down all the time. Mr. Oliveira himself used to say to me all the time how he hated people taking pictures of him because he knew his position had become really terrible towards the end of his life. And he actually used to ask people to, not to take photographs of him. And he became, very much into this thing of kind of his head lagging over and looking down. And he had a big pot belly by this time, which is why he didn't want anybody to take photographs of him. That's why I always tell people, when you're thinking about Mr. Oliveira, go back and look at the early stuff of his career, not the later stuff that students took pictures of and these kind of things, because you get a really wrong impression of what he was really like. But getting back here, and once again, that's why I don't want anybody looking at his books and then thinking, oh, I'm supposed to stare down all the time, because he wouldn't have recommended that either, and actually talked about his own position having sort of gone to seed, so to speak. So bear that in mind. So we either want to be straight, head up on top of our shoulders, or we can go back by lifting our chest and lifting our shoulders up and back a little bit to get behind the motion when we had to get a horse out in front of us. And then, of course, all we do is when the ball comes back up underneath us, then we can sit straight. Once again, just reiterating that concept, if we have a horse that's hollow and we sit absolutely straight with relaxed legs and we're pressing straight down into that back that's trying to come up. So sometimes we have to close our upper thigh a little bit and lift our shoulders up and back to displace the weight off of that position that's the lowest part of the horse's back that we don't want to see go down any further. So bearing all that in mind. But this is looking really good. This horse is so much improved since the first time I saw him. He looked quite irregular and, and that sort of thing, and was definitely not stretching and quite hollow, but you've done a wonderful job of bringing him along here. Just continue to try to open that walk up as you do. But you're going to continue to do that, I know, because I've already seen you doing it. So I find that with most of Thomas's workouts here, by the time I'm thinking, gee, I'd like to tell him that, he corrects it. So that's what I'm looking for. Really good walk there. We see how beautifully round that's becoming and how he's reaching out and starting to stretch out. Now we can see that this horse has a little bit of a tendency to curl back when we take contact from being broken in the neck earlier in his career somewhere or another. So we have to be careful about that and let them go out. Remembering when you have horses that have been overflexed in the neck, that is, they've been flexed at the third or fourth vertebrae. That's what happens to horses when people try to put them on the bridle and they're hollow. A horse can only flex at the pole if its back is up, and if it can't, and you force them against the hand, you're going to force those vertebrae back in the neck, which is why we see so many upper level horses who have that look about them that the neck seems to go up and then flattens out. And that's not what we want to see. That's a horse flexing in the wrong place in the back, and shows that the horse has been improperly trained and that nothing is going to be correct. So once again, the judges used to be very severe on this sort of thing. It used to be if you came in the ring with a horse a little behind the bit, you'd get a 30%. Nowadays, as I said, you can go in with the horse roll curd and nose pinned to his chest practically, and people seem to think it's okay. So we have to get away from that mentality of thinking. Now we can see here when this horse goes by in silhouette that we still have quite a bit of back muscling to build here. As you see, there's still a bit of a hole behind the saddle there. But this horse's conformation already looks better. When I first saw this horse, when you started with him a year or so ago, his belly was quite dropped, and you can see even there, he's much more pulled up through the abdominal wall now than he was. And the neck is just getting more straight out instead of that bend and sort of crink in the neck, so to speak. But as I said, that's often the problem when we have horses that have been bent in the neck. We get them to stretch, and they're already, they have a crink in their neck already where they've been overflexed in the third or fourth vertebrae, so they go down and they look behind the bridle. So those horses, we really have to work hard to send them through and try to get that nose to come out. And once again, it's why we also advocate you know, with horses that have been broken in the third vertebrae, that you use sham bone rather than side reins on them. It seems to work much better and helps them get stretched out and heal that. I mean, you've got to remember that what is really going on there is the tendons and ligaments have been stretched out that hold the spine together. So we have to give them time to heal before we can expect the horse to come up. As I say, when I look for horses to buy, that's the first thing I look at, and I try to reject any horse that has been broken at the third or fourth vertebrae for that very reason, because I know it will take a year just to heal that problem. Well, good here in the leg yield, some little bit of loss of rhythm, but not too much. Now we can see that this horse is still not developed. He's not lifting much through the back, but you're getting him in a position that will allow that to happen. This horse his back was quite down when they started this horse in the first videos that we saw and pictures that we saw of the horse. So this is a big, big improvement since last year sometime when we first saw this horse. Love how the walk is starting to just stretch out. And once again, if you were working out on the trails, this is exactly what you do out there too, folks. You would ride them exactly the same way. I was taught as a child that horses, when we rode them out, were always supposed to be stretching down, so they were paying attention to where they were going. You know, so instead of so they're not stepping in holes, so to speak. Really good leg yield there. Once again, you know, no major loss of rhythm. And once again, the technique of keeping your hands wide like that when you're riding in the beginning is perfectly okay. Once again, that is not equitation riding, but we're schooling horses here. Once again, you can't really equitate on a horse until they're well over their backs and you're not having to do a whole lot of schooling where things are changing all the time. So just bear that in mind. Now, even though in this, what I wouldn't mind seeing you do is just let your elbows stay a little bit more to your sides so that you're not lifting out your whole arm quite so much. But you're doing a perfectly fine job with this. But it kind of looks like you're pulling your shoulders up there a little bit. And I'd like to keep those elbows like into your sides a little more and let your hands come out from the elbow rather than lifting your whole arms. That's just because it's kind of an uncomfortable position. But once again, I'm much more concerned in whether whatever you're doing has the correct effect, and this did. So by doing what you just did, keeping contact there and making him more active, you were able to get him further out in front of your leg and therefore less curled in the rein. So that's really good news and exactly what we're looking for. Same thing there as we see, is just making those adjustments. And then, of course, now we can see that he's got the horse all the way out there and walking the way we want him to. Now his hands are where they belong, just in front of him there. But that's exactly right. We do what we have to do to get the horse working correctly in whatever position that might be. And then we go back to that equitation position. But this is all really good walk work, shows huge improvement over the last time I saw the horse. The belly, while still is a little distended there through the flanks, it's nothing compared to what we saw in previous videos. This is much more pulled up. The walk is much more swinging and active and has a really regular gait to it. So that's really what we're looking for. Remember, rhythm is the most important thing. Rhythm is what tells us whether we're doing things right or not. And now he's doing a shoulder in away from the wall. That's really good. That's our shoulder in nose to the rail, if you want to look at it that way, kind of reverse shoulder in. And that's really a good thing to do. Gets a little short in the neck there and tends a little bit too much bend in the neck. So I would be careful with those only for that reason, because we want to keep getting this horse to stretch all the way out and down. Good here, once again, good rhythm. And I love how, you know, he's never asking anything of the horse that the horse is not capable of doing. He's keeping the horse in the right kind of rhythm and the right kind of frame. He's not asking for 8-meter circles or something like that, or you know, extreme shoulder ins or half passes or things that would be difficult for the horse. He's working the horse within the context of what the horse is capable of doing at this moment. And here he is once again doing that reverse position shoulder in, which is a good thing to do, in that it's just a good option and gives you another way of doing the same thing once again, and that's good. Now this is getting a little bit slow here, and I'm sure he's feeling that. See how he straightens about, and right away when you do that, if it gets so slow, then we want to just right away reestablish that forward swing. But look how long the walk is getting, how long the neck is getting, and it's getting uncurled. So that's what we're really looking for. I want this horse to stop flexing at the third vertebrae back in the neck and just get stretched all the way out there. I know sometimes this work seems like it takes a long time, but you know, I see most people with horses these days, and they're, oh, it's going to take you 2 years to get the horse correctly on the bridle, and blah, blah, blah. But then I see those same two people, and I ask them how their horses are doing. Oh, well, it's lame now, and oh, it's got 6 months off because of what I did. So, you know, once again, the fast way is not really the fast way because you never actually get there. So working horses correctly means that you get to keep working them active and forward, and they get to keep developing, and they don't go lame every couple of months that you're having to deal, not only the matter of that, but the expense of the veterinarian bills that people pay. If they only knew that the really only problem is that they're having is they're simply not working the horse correctly over the back to develop. So once again, just like your car, if you buy a nice new car and take the shocks off of it and drive it for a year, the car will fall apart. Well, that's exactly what happens to horses when they are ridden incorrectly. Really nice transition up into the trot. Didn't make any big deal of it. Just let him start off slowly, staying in that stretch, and that's exactly what we want him to do. So once again, this trot looks so much better than the last time I saw it. It's actually starting to show a little push off the ground there, a little cadence. So that's well improved, though he looks like he needs to stay down. Once again, until we see that hole in this behind the saddle there, that dip begin to fill up a little more than that, you know that most of your work is going to be done in the stretch. And that is, of course, tempering that with the idea. We can ask for anything for a few moments, but if we don't get it, we can simply come back to the stretch, working the horse correctly over its back where it can work correctly. So people ask me all the time, do we just stretch horses and keep them there for 2 years? Well, the answer is no. You keep coming back to the stretch, and that happens throughout the entire length of the horse's training, just like it would if you're working out. But look how nicely he's now coming out through the neck now and getting out in front of you. This shows much more engagement over the top line. So as I said, once again, while it seems like it takes a little time, but when you do this correctly, when you hit that 2-year mark, it's almost the same with all horses. All of a sudden they just come up and they light up and they're able to connect. And then we have a sound horse that we can ride for the rest of our lives. The rest of theirs anyway, and actually a lot of ours. It's amazing how, if you keep horses healthy, as you see some of the ones that we have that are well into their 20s, and if you look at them, you would, you'd think they're 6-year-olds. It's all about taking care of yourself, and it's exactly the same thing for any living creature. If you don't take care of yourself and you have a bad diet and bad exercises, you're going to die young. Same thing is true of horses. Or you do extreme exercises that tears you up. Same thing, people have the same kind of problem, is that, they tend to overdo things, or they start making everything into a competition instead of, for me, I work out almost every day as well as ride horses, but I do it just to keep myself in shape to ride the horses. I don't do extreme things like running 10 miles a day. I tried that earlier in my life and found that, I couldn't walk for 2 weeks when I did, so it really was kind of counterproductive. But this is not counterproductive. This trot work you're doing is absolutely beautiful. He just shows so much more engagement than the last time I see him. He's absolutely developing absolutely beautifully. Exactly what we want to see. And I love how much longer the neck, and it's even gotten thicker. It's, when we first saw this horse, the neck was much thinner and kind of broken at the third vertebrae. So this is really, really good work we're seeing here now. And I think in the next year, you're going to see this horse really develop over its back, and you're going to have something really lovely to ride. Really great work keeping him right there. Really good rhythm. And once again, subtly, compare the subtle differences between this tape and the last one of this horse. You'll see he was not tracking anywhere nearly as deeply, and the neck was not out. In fact, it didn't look nearly as nicely developed as it now does. And it looked a little broken in the third vertebra. As I said, now when you see him in silhouette, you can still see there's a bit of a dip behind the saddle. Just know that that's all going to go away in time. So once again, you're stuck with the horse's conformation, but not relative to what a horse could be worked correctly. So once again, the horse is what it is, but if it's posture, just like a human being, if you've never exercised in your life and you've been a couch potato, your back is probably swayed and all the problems that people get. Well, horses are subject to the same things, but we can correct those things over time. If you're not dead, you can improve. Look at it that way. So if you haven't, totally paralyzed yourself or done something else to permanently damage yourself, you can improve almost everything in your body, everything about it. You can regain youth if you work at it. But look, as this horse is doing, look how he's starting to have a little spring in his step here. And once again, it's necessary for us as it is for them. I tell people all the time, riding is not exercise. You have to be in shape to ride. Yes, if you rode 20 horses a day, you'd get some exercise out of it. But most of us don't have 20 horses to ride a day. Even I, who work horses for 5 hours a day, usually every day, and sometimes 10 hours when I do give clinics, I still go to the gym every day. Beautiful trot work here. And once again, you see him widen his hands. That's exactly what he wants to do when the horse tries to escape the contact. So instead of pulling back, he can quickly keep and maintain the contact. That being one of the hardest things to achieve. Just know that at first you're just trying to get that idea of maintaining a soft, supple contact. But look how beautifully this horse is starting to swing now. I mean, this is such a huge improvement. I feel like this horse could even start doing some lengthenings here pretty soon. So you might want to add that into your workout. Just some simple lengthenings on either side. Starting to ask for a little more and more as time goes on. But remember, the rule for lengthenings is you only lengthen to the degree that you can keep the horse over its back. It doesn't do you any good, as you just did right there. So that was a nice little lengthening you did, and it's just exactly right. He didn't lose the position over his back, and he came right back when you just straightened up. Remember also that as you do these exercises with the horse, you want to get the horse to follow your back. So it's perfectly okay to come a little forward when you ask for the lengthening. Then you want to slow the horse down, you stretch up and back. So always use your back before you use your hands. You know, riders have this idea, oh, we have to sit perfectly in the saddle all the time and sit straight up and down. Well, if you notice, most of those people who ride like that are on hollow horses because they never give their horses a break. They're always sitting straight up and down on them, and they're usually gripping with their legs at the same time. So the beauty of the classical system, as I say many times, is that it not only improves the horse, but it improves the rider. You know, this is what gets the rider to ride in balance, because you're simply not holding on. You have nothing to hold on your balance because you're riding the horse into the weight of the rein. But look how good this looks. This is really wonderful. It shows so much more thrust than the last video we saw of this, so much more improvement in the neck, improvement of the overflexion of the third vertebrae. The back has come up, the belly has come up, and the horse is actually starting to show a little thrust. By thrust, we mean the push off the ground from the hind legs. Beautiful, but he's not dragging himself along by the front end anymore. That was a great job by Thomas. Once again, excellent work. We always look forward to your videos.
Oh, yeah?
Keep up the good work, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.